Today, I'm looking into used gear, and I'm trying to start this new buying guide 2025 for older gear. Like, is it still valuable today? What are the pros and the cons and getting that? Is it a good deal for the price and all that stuff? So let's start today with two devices from 1999, the year that was released the MIDI Express XT and the MIDI Timepiece AV from the company named Mark of the Unicorn, or like everybody calls them, MOTU. They're interfaces, MIDI interfaces, but they're much more complex than the usual MIDI interface that we know and talk about. Today, we don't have that much company making that type of interface. Now, the first thing we need to understand is the MIDI Timepiece has 8 ins and 8 out. The MIDI Timepiece Express XT or the MIDI Timepiece AV. The differences are not in the type of MIDI interfaces, but the extra control for synchronization. AV is for audio video sync, and the Express, well, doesn't have the same type of sync. It's not one single MIDI interface. When you look at it, you see one box and you say, well, there's 8 ins, 8 outs. Yes, but every cable, every output and input, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, they're all different MIDI interfaces. It's really having 8 different MIDI interfaces into the same box. So if you understand what MIDI can do, every MIDI interface or MIDI cable sends messages on 16 different channels. So you can control 16 different MIDI performances on one single cable. So one cable can control 16, a drum, a guitar, a bass, a piano, MIDI-wise. In some cases, it's perfect to have only 16 to control the whole system. If you look at this system here, I have one MIDI channel, one MIDI channel, one MIDI channel, 1, 1, 1. So I really just need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 MIDI channel for this whole system to run, and that's it. So I don't even use the 16. So if I would use just one MIDI interface and have a splitter just to be sure that they all receive a copy of the same message everywhere, I would just need one MIDI interface. So it would be a simpler MIDI interface. In this case, the MIDI Timepiece AV that I have here can play 16 channel on the cable number 1 that goes to this one, 16 channel on this one, 16 channel on this one, 16, but it's overkill because this setup does not respond. These devices cannot play on more than one single channel at a time. They're all monotimbral devices. Drum machine is different, but still it's like playing different voices of the same timbre that is a drum instead of timbre that are different notes. But so I only have, in this case, the MIDI Timepiece is overkill, but I have it so it works well. But on this side, with the rack mount, that's where you have the logic of why these devices existed, is you have a full rack of equipment, and then you have your MIDI Express that controls different devices. And on each of them, you have multiple MIDI channels that can control different type of sounds and different performances. Like just the JV2080 has itself 16 different channels, and it can play 64 different voices on 16 different channels. So you have a whole orchestra playing if you want there. And that's just on JV2080. So let's say that cable is on cable number 3, then cable number 3, I can use the full 16 channels just for this one. And then I have the TX81Z, which can be configured in a way that you can have 16 monophonic synthesizers playing on 16 different channels. So again, the TX81Z is a 16 tone, 16 timbre synthesizer. So I have another 16 channel just for that one. I've got the VP9000. I think it can play 6 different channels at the same time. So that's the logic. You would have a MIDI timepiece The good thing is that USB is still compatible after 25 years. So that's a really good plus. Still works, does the job. And the company decided to still create or update the drivers for it to still work. So that's a huge plus. I have to say a huge thanks to MOTU for Mark of the Unicorn, because not everybody supports it after 25 years. I'm running Sequoia 15 here, and I'm having an Apple M1 Pro chip on my MacBook Pro. It's not just the driver for it to work, but you also have an interface to program what comes in it. Now, the MIDI Timepiece AV and the MIDI Express XT were part of the same generation of devices. They were in the same year with the same technology. So they're having most of the same technology. The AV was the high-end one for professional sync, and the Express XT, outside of some of the sync features, it's almost the same device. So the difference is what you have on the MIDI Express XT, you have factory presets plus your own banks of how you set up everything in this. Whereas in the MIDI Timepiece AV, you have presets, but they're erasable, and they're not factory preset. Every time you modify it and you save into the memory, you're going to have the new one. You have your setup. The other difference is that on the MIDI Express XT, you need a software to change the internal patching. So the front panel is really just, I want to select the memory, the preset, by pressing on select. You're just going to load in memory. You can also select the memory and load it, the patch memory, the bank memory, and load it into the MIDI timepiece. You've got the MIDI Express XT and the MIDI Timepiece AV number 2. Now, number 2, just so you understand, my MIDI Timepiece AV internal battery has died. So I bought new batteries. I'm going to change them. I'm maybe going to do a video about changing the battery on the MIDI Timepiece AV. It's fairly simple. Well, it seems to be fairly simple. Problem is that every time I reconnect it, the computer sees it like a new MIDI timepiece. So I've got my MIDI Timepiece AV that I connected a couple of days ago, and the one I connected today, it sees like it's a different one. Even if it's the same device, it just doesn't recognize it. It's kind of a drag because all my connection that I did are lost. But let's go back to Clockworks. It sees it. So I've got, it's called 2 and XT. The graphic is basically the same. There's some differences. You see that you can stop and play with the MIDI timepiece, whereas this one, you can also record and pause and rewind. So the MIDI Timepiece AV is much more of a controller device that can control many devices, but there's a record out, and you go, what is the recording? Is because it can generate SMPTE timecode in an audio format. And then you can stripe it on a tape, that what we used to do with analog tape and video tape if you need to. So you would be able to synchronize these analog devices or even digital devices to this computer rig using SMPTE timecode. Now, I can do another video just on SMPTE timecode about the video format, the audio format, the MIDI timecode format. They're all linked together. In the end, you need to understand that a SMPTE timecode is basically a message talking about hours, minutes, seconds, frame, and subframes. So it was created for movie first. It was used for TV a lot. So it's based for image first. So there's no musical information in it. It's just time to be sure that every device that you have, they start at the same moment and they play at the same speed. And then if you enter digital devices, then you need to look at word clock, which the MIDI Timepiece AV has, but the MIDI Express does not. So if you need something more powerful to sync, MIDI Timepiece the AV would be a better option, but still it's sync from 1999, so it might not be as useful as you think. The rest is really powerful though. So if you look at the routing, just to go back to what this window gives you, in this case, because I've got this in my Mac, it sees every device that I created and linked to it, and it sees it right here. So, and when I'm going to open my software like Ableton Live and say I want to talk to the VP9000, I'll see that as MIDI Timepiece Express VP9000. So I don't have to remember that it's okay. It's on MIDI Express XT cable 1. That's where it is. What else you have? You got MIDI machine control, MIDI time code. Now in this one, you see you've got ADAT. So at the back of the MIDI Timepiece AV, you also have the option of connecting additional connectors like ADAT. In the case of the ADAT, it will also be the ADAT controller. So you'll be able to send the control to say stop, rewind, fast forward, go to that location. So there's markers of time to say go to 1 hour, 2 minutes, 3 frames, now. And this is what you also have here. So you could record these settings, these position in the timeline of your project. Remember, this is not for just for music, it's for anything. It could be a live show, and these could be controls for events on the stage that are not musically related, but they're time related to the whole show. So you can automate lighting and all stuff. I mean, MIDI controls a lot more than just musical information. Now, this is the routing. And if you want to connect something else, you could have, let's say, a controller on cable 8. At the front, I've got the MIDI input 8 and MIDI output 8. So I could just bring a new keyboard, send 8 to that, or bring a groove box and send my output of the groove box straight to the MIDI in. And then we'll say the port 8, I want to send it to the VP9000 straight. So I'm actually bypassing the computer here. I'm saying whatever comes into MIDI in 8 is going to be sent straight to cable 1. So cable 8 goes to cable 1, and you can, and well, I could say I want also to control to TX81Z. I also want to control the JV2080. I also want to control to the DPM, whatever you want it. So this is going to be one master device sending all the messages to all your destinations at the same time. So now this becomes a single 16 channel being copied everywhere. So this is a splitter. So in this case, you're looking at this device, these two devices, like a big MIDI patch bay. And you're reconnecting your internal setup of that rack and this setup in different ways. So if you want, in this case, I could patch everything in and out. And I'm going to say, today I'm going to have this one as the master. And I could say, well, memory number 1, it's the Uno Synth Pro being the master. And then for another project, I could say, I want a TR8S to be the master. Master of time, master of notes, and it's going to trigger everybody else. So I would say that this one, I don't know, connected into 1. 1 is being sent to everybody else. So I would say 1 here sends to 2, sends to 3. I can actually keep my shift down and just assign to everybody at the same time. And say the other one I don't want, I go backspace, backspace. Then you would go into presets, or here presets. You see that these are the factory preset you cannot erase, but you can say this one's going to be test 1. I'm going to go save. I'm going to call it, I don't know, TR8S master. I'm going to go, whoops, not Amster, but master. Go save. Now, if I look at the front here, it's going to be called TR8S master. So I can even move this value and change back to 1. And when I find it's the right one, I press yes. And now it's loaded back. So you can, that's what's really great about this. Let's say you set up a live show, and you know that depending on the songs, you might switch between, you're always going to use, let's say you've got 2 controllers that you're playing, and depending on the song, you might switch between, I want to control from my controllers different sounds from different devices in your setup. So you could actually have this switch from preset 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, depending on the setup that you're going to change in the songs. You can even give it a patch number to say, patch number 1, internal memory of the MIDI Timepiece switch to patch number 1. So it could be part of your keyboard setup that you're calling different patches of the MIDI Timepiece that changes the internal MIDI routing. So that's going to be really complex if you want to. It's going to be sending from controller that is connected on cable number 8. It's going to be on channel 16. A patch change coming on the cable number 8. So plug at the front here on channel 16 will trigger a switch of the internal presets. So you could set all that up. So that's why I'm saying this is a huge, powerful setup. Now, if you look at the presets, the factory presets, you get direct, MIDI machine, dual split, merge sum, merge all. I mean, merge all is that all of them sends to the same devices. So if you click merge all, just for the fun, go back into routing, you see this one is sent to everybody, and this one receives from everybody. So everybody sends to everybody. That's kind of too much. Go merge sum, go back to routing, you see that 5, 6, 7, and 8, they're being sent to everybody. So 5, 6, 7, and 8 are kind of master controllers. The other ones are sound generators and also sound module that receive controls. So really, these are the setup that you have by default. You can even mute tracks if you want to. Maybe I've got a keyboard, like I've got an older keyboard, which I don't have right now, that always sends a note on. Maybe it's broken and it always sends a little bit of information from note on channel 1. You can say, well, I want to mute it. I want to mute notes from cable 1, channel 1, input. It will not send any MIDI note from that. We've got monotouch. I don't want monotouch is aftertouch, which polytouch is polyphonic aftertouch. These are two different aftertouch. You might want to get rid of it if you have a device that sends errors, like an older synthesizer that always like +1, -1, +1, I had that on a pitch bend at one point. So you could go in and say, well, pitch bend, I want to mute the pitch bend for this entire, let's see, can I see the, yeah, that's it. Can you click on cable and say this entire cable, pitch bend will not pass through. So you're not using that as a controller, that's for sure, because you might want to have pitch bend sometimes, but in this case, you're muting it. So all of these can be muted. Controller messages, patch changes, song select, system reset, real-time, tune request, active sensing, system exclusive, MIDI timecode. Now, if you don't know what these are, you should go look at my video about what MIDI messages are and the MIDI implementation chart. What it means that these two MIDI interfaces are also MIDI processors. They can mute stuff that are problematic, but they also have mapping. And this is a little bit crazy. You can say, well, I've got MIDI input on channel 1, cable 1, channel 1, and I want to send this on channel 3. So what's coming on channel 1 is going to be reassigned to channel 3. So you could change MIDI messages from channels in real time and at the outputs or at the inputs. So if you have a device that always sends like a keyboard, like if I remember well, the DX7 only sends on channel 1 all the time. You cannot change the keyboard to another channel. But you would like to, then here you could say, well, channel 1 is now sending on channel 2. It's just going to, in real time, switch it. Same logic on this one here. Exactly same thing. You get the mutes, same logic. The mapping, oops, here you go, mapping, same logic here. What's the difference then when you get into the sync window and the pedal and knobs? Now, let's go to pedal and knobs first. You see on the MIDI Express XT, you have one pedal, click to MIDI, and normal. Click to MIDI is you're basically sending a pedal, you're pressing it, and as you press it, it sends a message, a fixed value, note on, a note off, a patch change. On this one, you have more control. You have two different pedals, one at the back, one at the front, and you can say the type of pedal, the rolling chord, because they've got different ways, or a foot switch, just to trigger something like sending a system exclusive. This is crazy, but you can send a system exclusive right here. You have it also here if you want to. You can send this note on, note off, all that stuff. Click to MIDI, same logic. And chord or roll-in, the two type of, basically it's a closed or open. Knobs are the four knobs at the front here. You've got four knobs. So if you're not in the mode of selecting memories or going through the navigation of the internal capacity of the MIDI timepiece, they can be used to send just MIDI messages. It could be attack, decay, sustain, release. It's your choice. So you can say it's going to be sending controller number, I don't know, 74, and You can decide every time, tick, 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 every time you turn it, its step per tick is going to be, I don't know, 10. No, sorry, not 110, but 10. Default value is going to be 64. And you can go from 0 to 127. And it's going to be sending on channel cable 8 and channel 1. It's your choice. You decide what you want to do. If this is for number 1, you can go number 2 and again control this. And this will be saved with your preset. So if it's in this one, save it. If I go to base setup 2, if I go back to pedal, it changed. Yeah, it changed. If I go back to preset, go back to TRS-1, 74. So this setup goes with the way you patched everything internally. This is crazy. The MIDI Express XT only can receive analog audio SMPT timecode, what we call LTC, longitudinal timecode. And you can also stripe. There's also an audio out you can send and record, generate audio timecode and record it on a tape or a video or record something else. And then that device that has recorded it now can play back and it becomes the master. Something that used to be very normal to do in early 2000, today we still see it, but there's other ways to do it if you want to. There's also word clock, which is interesting because it means if you want to synchronize your MIDI stuff with, let's say you've got a digital console that has a word clock out and you want to be word clock precise between, let's say, two computers that have, they're going to play audio, you want the word clock of the internal sound card to be exactly the same speed to be sure that when you press play, you play on the first sample and all the samples are moving at the same moment in time in all your devices that are word clock compatible. They have to use the same word clock, so they have to be able to do the same word clock. Now this is running 44.1 and 48, not 96 or the thing. I mean, this is 2000, early 2000, actually 2000 or 99. So these were the speed at the time. And you say, well, there's the super clock. Well, super clock is only for Pro Tools stuff from that era. As soon as 96 kilohertz came out, super clocks went out the door because it was too much information to be able to use super clock. So now 96 works well if you need that, but this will not sync to 96. But still, if you need to sync word clock, this can be word clock precise and also can detect ADAT and sync to ADAT because there's an ADAT connected at the back, so it can sync to it and use the ADAT protocol to stop, rewind, fast forward, and all that stuff. So that's the big plus. So it means that for a lot of people, this might be too much for anything. I mean, if you have a good price, why not? But the MIDI Express XT does what most people would need in a MIDI studio. You've got all the routings and internal connectors and ways to combine things that you don't need a computer if you don't want to. On the MIDI Timepiece AV, you've got more stuff, but more stuff that doesn't always equal useful today because it's using the super clock and word clock and all that stuff. You might not have the same, because it's an older device, you might not have the same need to connect these two. But what's interesting with the MIDI Timepiece AV is that, let's say in 2-3 years, they stop doing drivers for it. You could still do everything from the front panel. The front panel, all the menus that we saw on screen exist internally with the front panel. It's not easy to do, but it means that even without a computer, this has the power to reconnect cable 1 to cable 5 and channel 1 reassigned to channel 2. All of this that we just saw can be done on the front panel. The MIDI Timepiece AV can be a standalone device that can be programmed without a computer. That's kind of what the difference is between the MIDI Express XT and the MIDI Timepiece AV USB-R. In 2025, and any type of studio where you have more than 5 or 6 devices and you want to be able to connect all of them and change the way they're patched, I think these are great devices, and I'm kind of surprised that we don't see a lot of that today. I mean, there's a lot of people going, I want to be DAW-less, but even a DAW-less setup, you need to connect everything together. So you could just use a computer to patch, create your different patches and save it, and then later on just recall them with the button on it. And your DAW is much more flexible than having these bunch of cables coming in and out. And if you use a lot of out into in, through into the next one and out, you're going to have feedback MIDI and all different weird problems, because MIDI is not made to connect more than 3 devices one after the other in a daisy chain. It's just going to go bizarre. And I made a video about MIDI feedback. Look around in my YouTube channel and different problems that MIDI have. Think that your MIDI chain of devices should be not more than 3, maybe 4. That's it. So that's it. I hope this is actually useful. If you can get your hands on one, they're still valuable. They work well. They're even supported by the drivers, and you can do a lot with them today. MIDI is still compatible after all these years. It's the same protocol, and it works. That's it. Stay safe, make more music, and have a cleaner internal setup.